overall economic aggregates. So that means macroeconomics is that branch of economic theory which is related to not individual economic units but overall economic aggregates. So the term macroeconomics and microeconomics, you are all have understanding about it. So these two terms were not there since the birth of economic science in 1776. Later in 1933, Ragnar Frisch of Oslo University, he has coined the terms microeconomics and macroeconomics. So both micro means small, it deals with individual economic units. Macro means large, it deals with aggregates, overall economic aggregates like the national income of a country, total savings, total investment, general price level. So these are the overall aggregates with which macroeconomics is related. So naturally, when we talk about different schools of thought, it was the classical school which was developed after the publication of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations in 1776. That laid the foundation stone of macroeconomics. Of course, there are certain qualifications. So, and we know that during the century and a half following the publications of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, that was in 1776, the body of economic theory that was developed step by step by different authors is known as classical theory, classical economics, and notable among them are J.B. Say, Jean-Baptiste Say is a French economist, J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill, David Ricardo, Thomas Robert Malthus. So all these popular classical economists, they have contributed a lot towards the development of classical economic theory. So before starting how income and output are determined in the classical body, classical theory, we will highlight the basic assumptions of the classical school. So it would be better for you to understand all these things. The first assumption, the primary assumption of classical theory is Say's law of markets. So it is a popular law, it is the basis on which the classical economic theory rests. Say's law of markets was propounded by the French economist Jean-Baptiste Say, and this law simply states that supply creates its own demand. So that means whenever something is produced, income sufficient enough is created so that with the help of that income, people are able to purchase goods and services which are produced in the economy. So as a result, there would be no deficiency in aggregate demand, and the economy will operate at the full employment stage. So later, S.C. Pigou, Alan Conturian Pigou, he was a new classical economist. He added that if wage rate is flexible, that means if wage rate is flexible, then there would be no unemployment. How? He was of the view that in the classical sense, the economy always operates at the full employment stage. Full employment means a stage in which all the factors of production are optimally utilized. There is no unemployment. And Say was of the view That supply creates its own demand. Supply means supply of a commodity. When something is produced and supplied in the market, income is generated in the production process itself. With the help of this income, the factor owners, they are able to buy the goods and services they need, and these goods are normally produced in the economy, and in this sense supply creates its own demand, so there can never be general overproduction or general unemployment. This is the essence of Say's law. That means Say denies the possibility of general overproduction or general unemployment. So how unemployment is created? In the classical sense, employment depends on wage rate. If wage rate is high, demand for laborers will fall short of their supply. So there will be unemployment. So to that effect, SC Pigou holds the view that if wage rate is flexible downward, that means if wage rate is reduced to some extent, then what will happen? Demand for labor will increase, supply remaining fixed, there will be no unemployment. This is Say's law of markets. So another assumption about the classical theory is the laissez-faire system, laissez-faire policy. So laissez-faire means governmental non-interference. That means the classical economists were of the view that the economy will operate freely if there is free enterprise, if there is perfect competition, if people undertake their activities on the basis of their self-interest, then what will happen? Everything will be optimally produced. So laissez-faire means governmental non-interference, and the classical economists were very restricted. They have very restricted view of governmental functions. They only advocated government intervention in 3 fields. That means the classical economists under the policy of laissez-faire, they have advocated government intervention only in 3 fields. One is justice, giving justice to the people. Another is police, giving protection, maintaining law and order. And arms means to protect the national boundary, to protect the country from foreign aggression. These were the 3 basic lines of activities in which government intervention was required by the classical economists. And the classical economists were of the view that there is a free enterprise. So free enterprise is another basic assumption. Free enterprise means people are free to choose any enterprise they like on the basis of their self-interest. So if they pursue different economic activities on the basis of their self-interest, so there will be maximization of production. So says the classicals. The 4th basic assumption that you already know is perfect computation. So perfect computation is said to be a type of market where there are large number of buyers and sellers. There is free entry and free exit that we are talking about in free enterprise system. That means the firms are free to enter into the industry and they are also free to exit the industry. Another thing is price profit mechanism. Another assumption. The basic of resource allocation in the classical system is done through price profit mechanism. That means the classical economists They have advocated a governmental non-interference. We have discussed about it. So if there is no government, how will resources allocated? So the classical economists were of the view that the resources are allocated on the basis of the price profit mechanism. That means everything will be produced on the basis of price. When the price of a good is higher, more of it will be produced. If the price of a good is lower, more of it will be produced. How? When the price of a good is higher, it gives more profit to the producer. So normally the producers, they go after profit. They always aim at their self-interest lies in profit maximization. So when the price is higher, profit would be higher, and this would encourage the producers to produce more and more. So there will be higher production when the price is higher. This is the logic. So price profit, that means more resources will be allocated towards the production of those goods whose prices are higher and which yield higher profit to the producers. So this is in essence the price profit mechanism. So unlike the socialist system where everything is decided by the planning process, by the central planning authority, there is no such authority in a capitalist economy or a free market economy. That was advocated by the classical economists. So the classical economists mainly supported free market economy. So they are of the view that resource allocation is in this system is done through price profit mechanism, and more of those goods will be produced whose prices are higher, and less of the goods will be produced whose prices are lower. Another assumption is full employment. So we have already discussed it. So they were of the view that on the basis of Sage law of markets, the capitalist economy, the free market economy, will always operate at the full employment stage. If there may be unemployment, but not in general sense. There will never be general overproduction or unemployment. So says Sage law. There might be sectoral unemployment. There might be unemployment in some specific sectors, but this can be easily removed, controlled by lowering the wage rate. This is called the wage rate flexibility. So by wage rate flexibility, the system could operate at the labor market, at the free full employment stage. So another basic assumption of classical system that you have also known is saving investment equality. This shows goods market equilibrium. We will discuss how goods market remains in equilibrium in the ISLM model later. But in this time, we know that the classical economists, they always assume saving investment equality. And the rate of interest, according to them, is the equilibrating mechanism, which brings equality between savings and investment. That means, suppose savings and investment, they are not in equilibrium. There is a disequilibrium, so says. If there is a disequilibrium, there is excess of saving over investment. So disequilibrium means either there is excess of saving over investment or excess of investment over savings. So suppose we say The market rate of interest is higher than the equilibrium rate of interest, and the equilibrium rate of interest is the rate at which savings and investment are equal. If market rate is higher, what will happen? Savings will be more, but investment will be less. If rate of interest is higher, then it would be costlier for the investors to borrow money. They have to pay more rate of interest. The savers, on the other hand, they would be encouraged to save more and more at a higher rate of interest. Okay. So, what will happen? This excess of investment over saving will ultimately reduce the rate of interest. There will be excess of investable funds which cannot be invested due to higher rate of interest. So, seeing this, the rate of interest will reduce, will fall gradually until saving investment equality is re-established. So we will take another example. Suppose there is excess of saving over investment. When there is excess of saving over investment, rate of interest will fall. That means all those people who save money, they cannot find investment avenues. So in that case, they will fail to utilize their savings, and this excess of savings will reduce the rate of interest. As a result, what will happen? When interest is reduced, saving will be reduced. The savers will find it less profitable to save. So saving will be reduced. Investment will increase. With the falling of rate of interest, the investors find it more profitable to invest money, to borrow money at less rate of interest. So saving investment equality will be re-established. This is how saving investment equality is established in the classical sense. And here the rate of interest is the key, is the determinant. Another basic assumption about the classical theory is the quantity theory of money, which shows money market equilibrium. So as students of economics, you are all aware about the quantity theory of money, which simply says that price level is a function of quantity of money or supply of money. And the classical economists were of the view that quantity of money, when quantity of money is increased, when supply of money is increased, then price level will increase proportionately. So there is a direct and proportional relationship between money supply and the price level. So says the classical economists. The quantity theory of money in its crude form simply establish a direct and proportional relationship between money supply and price level, and you are all very much related with the Fisherian equation of exchange, that is MV is equal to PT. M means money supply, V means velocity of circulation of money, that means the average number of times money unit changes its hands. Now, how many number of times a money unit passes from one person to another? This is called velocity of circulation of money. M, V. These two terms determine the money supply, the left side of the equation. The right hand side equation of the equation PT. P means price level, T means volume of trade. Volume of trade means amount of goods and services produced. The classical economists were of the view that V and T, they are constant. They assumed velocity of circulation of money and volume of trade as constant. So if these two terms are constant, then what will happen? M is equal to P. That means price level directly depends on money supply. Higher money supply means rise in price level. Lower money supply means fall in price level. And what about value of money? Value of money is an inverse function of money supply. That means when money supply is increased, value of money will fall. Price level will increase and the value of money will fall. And if price level is reduced, value of money will increase. This is in essence the quantity theory of money. And we have discussed all these assumptions so that you would be very much clear about the classical theory. So we have discussed the Sage law of markets, laissez-faire policy, free enterprise economy, perfect competition, self-interest, price profit mechanism, full employment, savings investment equality, quantity theory of money, and wage rate flexibility. So all these are basic to classical system. And before discussing how the classical economic system operates, we will throw some light on what is the importance of macroeconomics. You must have some basic knowledge about importance of studying macroeconomics. Why is there necessity of studying macroeconomics? So macroeconomics, it is of utmost importance for economic analysis, for economic policy formulation. So it is helpful in understanding the function of the economy and how an economy functions. This would be very much clear if we follow macroeconomic principles. Macroeconomics helps in the formulation of economic policies. So it is very much helpful in framing economic policy. It is helpful for the government while forming economic policies. Suppose there is a price rise. So what policy will government follow? If there is unemployment, which policy will follow? The same policy cannot be applied to a situation like depression. So macroeconomics shows us how economic policies are framed. It helps in studying national income. So another importance of macroeconomics is it studies, or it helps in analyzing national income and social accounts. So another very important contribution of macroeconomics is its analysis of trade cycles or business cycles. So you have known that trade cycles are periodic upswings and downswings that an economy face due to fluctuations in the economic activities. So fluctuations in economic activities like employment, price level, savings, investment, these bring trade cycles. So there are 4 phases of trade cycles: inflation, recession, deflation, depression. So we will discuss all these issues, all these things when we will study the trade cycles. So macroeconomics is also very much helpful in controlling price level. It also helps us in understanding the relationship that exists between different sectors of the economy. Another thing is that it is very much helpful in analyzing international trade. So, international trade is a very important component of macroeconomics. So, also economic growth. Macroeconomics is very useful in analyzing the theory of economic growth. So, these are the importance of studying macroeconomics. There are some limitations also. One of the very important limitations of macroeconomics is the fallacy of generalization. So macroeconomics suffers from the fallacy of generalization. That means we cannot apply a general conclusion to an individual case. So we will give an example. Suppose savings. Savings is a private virtue. Savings are a private virtue. That means all the private persons, they try to save money, try to save as much as possible. But if this is applied to the general economic system, what will happen? Savings are a leakages from the economic stream, from the economic activities. So larger savings means deficiency in aggregate demand. If we save more, consume less, what will happen? There will be fall in aggregate effective demand. But classical economists, they have said that whatever is produced is automatically sold, whatever income is earned, they are automatically spent. This is the logic of the classicals. But we will discuss how this logic fails after discussing the theory of income determination in the classical sense. We will discuss the basic limitations, the basic what we call the basic fallacies of the classical system. So this is the fallacy of generalization. Another thing is that macroeconomics overlooks individual economic units. The contribution of economic units are overlooked. It studies overall economic aggregates. It does not study individual economic units. Another problem is we know that when we calculate national income, when we calculate price level by using index numbers, we face a number of conceptual difficulties and a number of practical difficulties. When we construct an index number, we have to select a base year. Which year will be the base year? Deciding the base year is a very difficult task because we have assumed that base year should be that year which should be free from unnecessary fluctuations. There should not be natural calamities. There should not be man-made catastrophe like wars like that. But actually finding such a year is very much difficult. And another thing is which method, which average we will follow to average the price level, which goods are to be selected. We cannot select, we cannot use the prices of all the hundreds of thousands of goods that are produced in the economy in a year. If you include all the goods and services produced in an economy, then it would not be possible for us to construct an index number. That is why we have to select some goods, representative goods. But how we select these representative goods, this is a very difficult task. There are weights also. The problem of assigning weights is another problem. Weights means importance. So all the goods that we consume are not equally important. Some are more important, some are less important. Visiting a cinema is less important. But taking food, purchasing food materials, more important. Buying a book is more important for a student. But visiting a match is less important for a student. So these are the limitations of macroeconomics, and we have discussed the basic assumptions of the classical system. So we will go to discuss the income determination, how income, output, and employment are determined in the classical sense. So if you have any doubt, can clarify it. If anyone is having any type of doubt with the discussions that we have made, then please ask. ଯଦି କୌଣସି କିଛି ବୁଝିବାର ଅସୁବିଧା ଅଛି କି କଣ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ଅଛି, ଡାଉଟ ଅଛି, କୁହ ପିଲେ, ନହେଲେ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ପୁଣି ଆଗକୁ ଯିବା। ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
हेलो
ପିଲାମାନେ ସବୁ ଶୁଣିପାରୁଛଟି? ହଁ
आगे सर गुड इवनिंग सर टिके स्क्रीन टा
ହଁ
शेयर करले भलो होता
ହଁ
सर टिके स्क्रीन टा शेयर करंतु आपन जोटा पढौचंती।
ଆଚ୍ଛା ସବୁ ଶୁଭୁଛି ନା ନାଇଁ ମୁଁ ଯାହା କହୁଛି? ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ଶୁଭୁଛି ସାର୍।
ଆଚ୍ଛା
यस सर सुबह जाଉଛି।
ହଉ ହଉ, କିଛି ଯାହା ଆମେ ଡିସ୍କସନ କଲେ କଣ କିଛି କାହାର କିଛି ଡାଉଟ ଅଛି ଯଦି କୁହ, କୌଣସି ପ୍ରକାର ସନ୍ଦେହ ରହିଛି କହିଲେ ଆମେ ପୁଣି ଆଗକୁ ଯିବା। ନା ନାହିଁ କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା? ତ ଠିକ ଅଛି, we will proceed. We will now discuss how income, and we have discussed that the classical economists, they have assumed full employment. That means they hold the view that the economy always operates at the full employment stage. How then income is determined? The next question is. So before discussing these issues, we will discuss that demand for labor, production function in the classical system, the amount of production in an economy in the classical sense depends on three things. That means the classical production function shows the relationship between input and output, and output is said to be a function of three factors. One is stock of capital, K. Another thing is technology, T. And the most important is level of employment. How many people are employed? N. So output in the classical sense is a function of level of employment, technology, capital, stock. But the classical economists have assumed constant technology and capital stock. That means they have assumed that there is no change in capital stock and no change in technology. So then output in the classical sense is a function of a level of employment. The amount of employment, how many people are employed, shows how much goods are produced in an economy. And demand for labor or employment means demand for labor. supply of labor is assumed to be fixed in the classical sense. But demand for labor is a function of wage rate. ସେମାନେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ wage rate, the demand for labor depends on wage rate. If wages are low, demand for labor would be higher, and if wages are higher, demand for labor would be less. So wage rate is flexible, and if the wage rate is flexible, then this will adjust to changes in the supply and demand for labor. So says the classicals. That means if there is a discrepancy between demand for labor and supply of labor, then the wage rate will be either increase or decrease to make adjustment between them, so that there would be equilibrium in the labor market. Suppose wage rate is higher. So in that case, demand for labor is less, supply of labor is more. There would be unemployment. When the people are unemployed, what will happen? They will try to find work even at a lower wage rate. They would be willing to provide their services at a lower wage rate, so that wage rate will be less. When wage rate is less, demand for labor would increase. Supply remaining constant and increase in demand for labor will reduce unemployment. So this is wage rate flexibility. So we can say that demand for labor is inversely related to real wage rate. Demand for labor is inversely related to wage rate. That means wage rate is, if wage rate is less, demand would be more. If wage rate is more, demand would be less. Okay? So another thing is supply of labor is assumed to be directly related to the wage rate. The classical economists argue that supply of labor is directly related to the wage rate. That means if wages are higher, supply of labor would be higher, and if wages are less, supply will be less. So with this basic background, we can say that when demand for labor is higher, when more laborers are employed, then there will be higher production. The level of production will increase, as a result of which there would be more income, more output. This is the case. Then we will see how all these things, how the wage rate, demand, supply of labor, demand for labor, they are all associated, they are all linked to the classical theory. Another thing that we have already discussed is saving and investment equality. That means saving, the classical economists were of the view that savings and investment, they are always equal. Even if there are minor discrepancies, this will be adjusted instantly due to change in the rate of interest. We have already discussed these issues. So we are now going to discuss how employment and output is determined. So the level of employment is the key. In the classical theory, level of employment is the key. And it is determined by demand for and supply of labor. As we have discussed, demand for labor and supply of labor, they determine the level of employment. So demand for labor, why is labor demanded? ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ତମ ମନକୁ ଆସିପାରେ ଯେ labor କାହିଁକି demand, କ'ଣ ଦରକାର? Labor is demanded because of their marginal productivity. because of their contribution to the production process. So normally demand for labor depends on marginal productivity of labor. It also depends on the wage rate. So in the classical system, there is equilibrium in the labor market when marginal productivity of labor is just equal to the wage rate. That means there would be equilibrium in the labor market if real wages equal marginal productivity. So says the classicals. So marginal productivity कौन पुणी? Marginal productivity means addition to total productivity brought about by the employment of an additional labor unit. So we will see that demand for and supply of labor determine the level of employment, and level of employment determines the amount of output to be produced in the economy. If there is, the classical economists, they are of the view that when a wage rate is greater than when the wage rate, actual wage rate, another is real equilibrium wage rate. So two things are there. One is actual wage rate, market wage rate, another is equilibrium wage rate. And we have talked about the equilibrium wage rate. Equilibrium wage rate is that wage rate at which wage rate is equal to marginal productivity. So there is no necessity that the market rate is always equal to the equilibrium wage rate. Sometimes market wage rate or real wage rate may be higher than that. Maybe there may be discrepancy as well. So when actual wage rate is greater than the equilibrium wage rate, there will be an excess supply of labor. When actual wage rate is found to be greater than the equilibrium wage rate, there would be an increase in or excess supply of labor. Supply of labor will be higher. Demand for labor will be less. So how can equilibrium be achieved? So in this case, equilibrium will be achieved only when the real wage will fall. So that means real wage must fall so that the economy will achieve equilibrium. So how the real wage will fall? How is real wage calculated? Real wage is the ratio of money wage to price level. Symbolically, this is W by P, money wage rate as a ratio of the price level. So what will happen when there is excess supply of labor? How the real wage rate will fall? The money wage rate has to be reduced. If money wage rate is reduced, if W is reduced with no change in price level, real wage rate will fall. Another thing is, if real wage is below the equilibrium wage rate, if real wage rate is less than the equilibrium wage rate, what will happen? There would be excess demand for labor. Competition among employers, that means if there is excess demand for labor, there would be more competition among the employers to employ laborers so that they can produce more. So competition among employers will bid up the wage rate. That means competition among the employers will increase the wage rate. And it will increase the wage rate by such an amount so that the real wage will increase. Essentially, the real wage rate is below the equilibrium wage rate. So now competition among the employers will increase the wage rate so that there will be equilibrium will be re-established. We have discussed the quantity theory and we have discussed the point that increase in money supply will increase the price level. In the classical sense, velocity of circulation of money and volume of trade, they are constant. They are assumed to be constant. So, demand for goods and services will mostly depend on what? Price. So, aggregate demand curve in the classical sense, this depends on the price level. If prices are low, demand would be more. If prices are higher, demand would be less. So this shows that when aggregate supply is over aggregate demand, what will happen? Price level will fall. If aggregate supply is excess or is greater than aggregate demand, price level will fall. And otherwise, if aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply, price level will rise. So the classicals are of the view that aggregate demand and aggregate supply, they are equal at the full employment stage. So at the full employment stage, there is always, the economy always operates at the full employment stage. So this is the classical theory of income and output. So now we will discuss something about the limitations of the classical theory. So before going to discuss the Keynesian theory, we will discuss how the classical theory is true. So the classical philosophy based on assumption of perfect competition. But do you find perfect competition a reality? Perfect competition is never found. Perfectly competitive market is never found. It is not a reality. It is just used as a touchstone to compare other market forms. So perfect competition means large number of buyers and sellers, uniform price, identical homogeneous goods, free entry and free exit, perfect knowledge regarding market price. So all these things, they are not found in the real world. So actually, perfect competition is not a reality. So this is a major drawback of the classical theory. Another drawback, another limitation of the classical theory is Sage law. Sage law establishes, points out that there is no excess production. The supply creates its own demand so that there can never be general overproduction or general unemployment. That means aggregate demand and aggregate supply are equal. But is this true? So this system, the Sage law, the classical school, they run smoothly till the outbreak of the Great Depression of the 1930s. But during 1930s, With the onset of a Great Depression, what happened? Prices fell to rock bottom. Industries are closed. Laborers are thrown out of employment. So, in this situation, the classical solution failed miserably. Classical solution means the classical economics. Classical solution ta कौन है प्ले? Classical solution is reduce the wage rate when there is unemployment. But when unemployment is there, when people are thrown out of employment, when industries are closed, people have no income or very low income. If wage rate is reduced further, aggregate demand will fall further. So this resulted in a market glut or overproduction, which the classical scheme of things could not solve. Classical scheme it is wage cut, wage reduction, so that failed miserably. Wage cut or wage reduction policy is not found to be suitable to fight depression, to fight unemployment. So another thing is underemployment equilibrium. So the classicals found full employment as the basic assumption. But Keynes have proved that full employment is not the reality. The economy never operates at the full employment level. So like the assumption of perfect competition, full employment is a myth. Full employment is not a reality. Full employment is a kalpanika katha. Actually, reality is underemployment equilibrium. So that means Keynes have found that in an economy there is involuntary unemployment and underemployment. It is gote katha pile. Unemployment how is it defined? Unemployment ame kemti ta define kariba. So unemployment means it is a situation when the people who are willing to work at the prevailing wage rate do not find a job. People who are willing to work at the prevailing wage rate, if they fail to get a job, this is called unemployment. But if people are not willing to work, then what will happen? So that is why Keynes says that full employment means absence of involuntary unemployment. Not unemployment at all. So underemployment is the reality, so says Keynes. So full employment assumption is a myth, is proved to be a myth. Another thing is the automatic adjustment mechanism. Keynes was of the view that saving investment equality is not achieved through the rate of interest. Classical scheme ସେମାନେ କଣ କହୁଥିଲେ? Saving and investment, they are always equal at the full employment stage. Investment, then the rate of interest will change. And rate of interest will change. This change in rate of interest will bring about equality between saving and investment, being about equilibrium, re-establish equilibrium. This is the logic of the classical. But Keynes thinks rather it is the income. To Keynes, rate of interest is not the equilibrating mechanism. It is the income that brings about change in the level of investment and savings so that equilibrium will re-establish. So the saving investment equality through rate of interest as an equilibrating mechanism is found to be a failure. So another weakness is laissez-faire policy. So we have discussed that the classicals, they only advocated state intervention in 3 fields: justice, police, and arms. In no other fields there is need for governmental intervention.
ସାର୍ ଗ୍ରୁପରୁ ଲେଫ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲେ କି?
ସାର୍ ବୋଧେ ଲେଫ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲେ।
ତାଙ୍କର ନେଟୱାର୍କ ଇସୁ ବି ରହୁଛି, ମାନେ ମଝିରେ ମଝିରେ ଏମିତି କିଛି କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯୋଉଟା କି ଶୁଣା ଯାଉନି। ତାପରେ ଯେକୌଣସି ଇକ୍ୱେସନ ବି କରୁଛନ୍ତି ତ ଯଦି ସ୍କ୍ରିନ୍ ଟାକୁ ସେୟାର କରନ୍ତେ ଆମେ ବୁଝିପାରନ୍ତେ ନା, ଯେମିତି ମାଇକ୍ରୋ ପେପରରେ ସେ ସାର୍ ସେୟାର କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ପାଣି ସିଏ କହି ଚାଲିଛନ୍ତି ଆମେ ଖାଲି ଶୁଣୁଛୁ। ଜାଣି ହବା ବୋଲେ କୋଉଟା କୋଉ ସେ
ସାର୍ ପଢଉଛନ୍ତି ସେଇଟା ବୁଝିବାକୁ ସୁବିଧା ହବ।
ଆମର ଯୋଉ ଇଗ୍ନୋ ମେଟେରିଆଲ ଖୋଲିକି ବସିଛି ଫାଷ୍ଟ କ୍ଲାସିକାଲ ଥ୍योरीର ଆସମ୍ପସନ କୁ ଗଲେ ତ ଠିକ ଅଛି ସବୁ ଅଛି। ତାପରେ ଯୋଉ ଆଉଟପୁଟ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ଡିଟରମିନେସନ ପଢିଲେ ତା ପୂର୍ବରୁ କହିଲେ ଯୋଉ ଲିମିଟେସନ୍ସ ଅଫ କ୍ଲାସିକାଲ ଥ୍योरीର ମାକ୍ରୋ ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ସେଇଟା ସେଇ ପାର୍ଟଟା ନାହିଁ ଆମର ଏଠି ହେଲା। ମୋ ବହି ମାନେ ଘାଣ୍ଟିଲେ କଣ ହବ ମିଳୁନି ନା। ତାପରେ ସେ ଏପଟକୁ ଆସିଲେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯୋଉ ଆଉଟପୁଟ ଆଉ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ଆଜ୍ଞା
ସାର୍ ସ୍କିମ୍ ସେୟାର କଲେ ଆମେ ସେଥିରୁ ବି କିଛି ଜାଣିପାରିବା ନା।
ସେଇଟା ହଉଛି କଥା ମାନେ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ସେତେବେଳେ ଆରମ୍ଭ କଲେ ତ ମାନେ ସେଠି ବି ଇକ୍ୱେସନ କିଛି କହୁଛନ୍ତି ମାନେ ପ୍ରଡକ୍ସନ ଫଙ୍କସନ ଏଟା ସେଟା କହୁଛନ୍ତି ସବୁ ବାକି ସେ ଫଙ୍କସନ ସବୁ ଦେଖେଇଲେ ସିନା କିଛି ଗୋଟେ ଇକ୍ୱେସନରେ ଆମେ କିଛି ବୁଝିବୁ। ନନଷ୍ଟପ ସେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଆମେ ଶୁଣି ଚାଲିଛେ। ଲେଫ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲେ ନା କଣ କମ୍ପ୍ଲିଟ।
ପ୍ରିୟା ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ତ ଛାଡିଛନ୍ତି ବୋଧେ ଆମର ଗ୍ରୁପର ଲିଙ୍କ ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଜଏନ ହେଇଗଲେ ସାରଙ୍କୁ କହିବା ସାର୍ ବି ଜଏନ ହେବେ ଆଉ।
ହଁ ହଁ ଠିକ ସାର୍ ତ
ସବୁ ତ
ଗ୍ରୁପ ଲେଫ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲେଣି ଆଉ ତ କଣ
ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ଆସାଇନମେଣ୍ଟ ଲେଖୁଛନ୍ତି ତାକୁ କେମିତି କଣ ନେଇକି ଡିପୋଜିଟ କରିବା କିଏ କିଛି ଜାଣିଛ କି?
ଯୋଉଠି ଷ୍ଟଡି ସେଣ୍ଟର ମାନେ ଆପ୍ଲାଏ କଲାବେଳେ ଆପଣ ଦେଇଥିବେ ସେଇଠି ନେଇକି ସବମିଟ କରିବେ। ବାସ୍ ସେଇଠି ହିଁ କମ୍ପ୍ଲିଟ କଲା ପରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦେଲେ ସେଇଠି ତ ନେବେ ଆଉ।
ନାଇଁ ଯୋଉ ଆମେ
ତାପରେ ଯେବେ
ଆସାଇନମେଣ୍ଟ
ଫର୍ମ ଫିଲଅପ
ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି
ହବ
ତାକୁ କଣ ସ୍ପାଇରାଲ ବାଇଡିଙ୍ଗ କରିବ ନା ସେମିତି ଷ୍ଟିକ ଫାଇଲ ଲଗେଇକି ନେଇ ଦେଇଦେଲେ ହବ।
ଷ୍ଟିକ ସାଇଜ ନୁହେଁ ସମସ୍ତେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ମାନେ ମୁଁ ଯେତିକି ପଚାରିଛି ସମସ୍ତେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ମାନେ ହାତରେ ସିଲେଇ କରିବାକୁ। ଯେମିତି ଏମିତି ସ୍ପାଇରାଲ ବାଇଣ୍ଡିଙ୍ଗ କଲେ ହବ ଯେ କିନ୍ତୁ ସମସ୍ତେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ବେଟର ହବ ଯେମିତି ତମେ ତିନି କିଏ କଥା କହୁଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କ ଆୱାଜ ଶୁଣା ହଉନି।
ଆପଣ କୁହନ୍ତୁ କଣ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି?
ହଁ ମାନେ ଏଇ ଯେ ତିନିଟା କଣା କରିକି ଯେମିତି ଆମେ ଖାତା ଆଗରୁ ସିଲେଇ କରନ୍ତି ତ ସେଇ ଟାଇପରେ ମତେ ବି ଜଣେ ସିନିୟର ସଜେଷ୍ଟ କଲେ ନିଜ ହାତରେ ଏମିତି ସିଲେଇ କରିକି ଦେଲେ ପେପର ସବୁ ରହିବ ଠିକ ଠାକ ମାନେ ଚିରିବନି କି ବାହାରିବନି ମାର୍ଜିନ ବି ଆମକୁ ଟିକେ ବେଶୀ ମାନେ ଛାଡିଥିବ। ଆଉ ତ ତାପରେ ଯୋଉ ଆମ ଏନରୋଲମେଣ୍ଟ ନମ୍ବର ଏଇଟା ସେଇଟା ସେଇ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ପେଜ ରହିବ। ଆଇଡେଣ୍ଟି କାର୍ଡ ଟା ରହିବ ତାପରେ କୋଶ୍ଚେନ ପେପର ତାପରେ ଆନ୍ସର ସବୁ। ଏମିତି ହିଁ ମୁଁ ମୋ ହିସାବରେ କରିଛି ମତେ ସେ କହିଛନ୍ତି ଜଣେ କି ଠିକ ଅଛି ବାକି ଜାଣିନି ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ
ଲକ୍ଷ୍ମୀପ୍ରିୟା କାଲି ମତେ ସେୟାର କଲନି କହିଥିଲ।
ଆରେ ସିରିୟସଲି ମୁଁ ନା ପୁରା ଦିନ ସାରା ବିଜି ପୁରା ଆଜି ମୁଁ ଏଇ ଅଫିସ ରୁ ଆସିଲି ଚାରିଟା ବେଳେ ଆସିକି ଏଇଠି କ୍ଲାସ ମାନେ ମୁଁ କାଲି ନଥିଲି। ଆସିଲି ରାତିରେ ଘରକୁ 11ଟା ହେଇଗଲା ଆଉ କେତେବେଳେ ଏତେ ଲେଟ୍ ନାଇଟ୍ ଆଜି ମୁଁ ଏଇ ନୋଟରେ ତମ ନମ୍ବର ଟା ଦେଖିଲି। ମୁଁ ମାନେ ଇଭିନିଂ ରେ ତମକୁ ମେସେଜ କରିଥାନ୍ତି ମାନେ ମୁଁ ପୁରା ବ୍ୟସ୍ତ ବହୁତ ରହିଯାଇଥିଲି। ଆଜି ନିସିଓର ତୁମକୁ
ଆଚ୍ଛା
ସେୟାର
ଆଚ୍ଛା
କରିବି।
ହଉ ଠିକ ଅଛି ଠିକ ଅଛି।
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରର
ହଁ
ଯୋଉ
ହଁ ନା
ରିଜନିଂ ସେଣ୍ଟରରେ କୋଉ ମାନେ ଯାଇ ଡିପୋଜିଟ କରିବ?
ମୁଁ ଅଛି ଡିପୋଜିଟ୍ କରିବି ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ।
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ଵରରେ କିଏ ଅଛ?
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ ମୁଁ ହଉଛି
ଅଛି
ଶାନ୍ତନୁ ମାଛରେ।
ମୁଁ ଶୁଭଶ୍ରୀ ଅଛି ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ ଷ୍ଟଡି ସେଣ୍ଟରରେ ଡିପୋଜିଟ୍ କରିବି।
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ଵର ଗୋଟେ ଗ୍ରୁପ କର କିଛି ମାନେ
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ
ହବ।
ଗ୍ରୁପ ଅଛି ବା।
କୋଉଟା କହିଲ?
ବାଲେଶ୍ଵରରେ ମେ ବି କେହି ନାହାନ୍ତି ନା କଣ ବାଲେଶ୍ଵର ରେଫ ମଣ୍ଡରେ କେହି ନାହାନ୍ତି ନା କଣ?
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ଵର ଗ୍ରୁପ ଟା କୋଉଟା ଯୋଉ ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି କି ଇଗ୍ନୋ ଏମ
କେତେ ସାରା
ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ
ଗ୍ରୁପ ସବୁ
କେତେ ତ
ହଁ ହଁ
ଗ୍ରୁପ ଅଛି ଜଣା ହିଁ ପଡୁନି କୋଉଟା।
ମେ ବି ସେଗୁଡା ଫାଷ୍ଟ ଦିନ ସେୟାର କରିଥିଲେ ସେ ଲିଙ୍କ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ଵର
ହଁ
ଗ୍ରୁପ ର।
ସେଇଟା ହିଁ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ଦିନ ହେଇଥିଲା ସେ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଟା ସେଥିରେ ସବୁ ଆଡ ହେଇଥିଲେ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ଯେତିକି ସବୁ ଥିଲେ।
ଓ ସେଇଟା ତାହେଲେ ନା।
ଆପଣ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଆଡ ହେଇଛନ୍ତି କିଏ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ଆଡ ହେଇଛନ୍ତି?
ଆଜ୍ଞା।
ଆଡମିନ କିଏ ସାର୍ ଅଛନ୍ତି ଆଡମିନ?
ନାଇଁ ଆଡମିନ ସାର୍
କେହି
କେହି
ନାହାନ୍ତି।
ନାହାନ୍ତି ପିଲା ହିଁ ଅଛନ୍ତି ସାର୍ ହିଁ ମନା କଲେ କି ତମ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଫ୍ରୁପ କିଛି କରନି। ଯଦି ତମେ ରେସପନସିବିଲିଟି କରିବ ତମ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ କର ଆମକୁ ସେଥିରେ ଇନକ୍ଲୁଡ କରିବନି କିଛି ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହେଲେ ଆମକୁ ଡାକିବନି ସେ ସେଇ କଥା କହିଥିଲେ ଯୋଉ ଦିନ ମିଟିଂ ହେଇଥିଲା ଫାଷ୍ଟ ଦିନ।
ସେଇଟା ସବୁ ମେ ବି ସବୁ ଷ୍ଟଡି ସେଣ୍ଟରରେ ସେଇଟା ହିଁ ଗାଇଡଲାଇନ୍ସ ରଖିଛନ୍ତି। କାହିଁକି ନା ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରୁ ପିଲାମାନେ ନମ୍ବର ନେଇକି ମିସୟୁଜ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। ସମସ୍ତେ ମନା କରୁଛନ୍ତି କହିଲେ ତମେ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ସେମିତି ତମେ ଷ୍ଟଡି ସେଣ୍ଟରକୁ ଯାଇକି ପର୍ସନାଲି ଗୋଟେ ଝିଅ ନମ୍ବର ଆଣିକି ଯଦି ତାଙ୍କୁ ମାନେ ନିଜେ ପର୍ସନାଲି ତାଙ୍କର ରିସ୍କ ନେଇକି କରିବେ ତ ଠିକ ଅଛି ମାନେ ଏମିତି ସେମାନେ କମନ ଗ୍ରୁପ ପାଇଁ କାହିଁକି କେଜାଣି ପରମିସନ ଦଉନାହାନ୍ତି।
କମନ ଗ୍ରୁପ ପାଇଁ ଏମାନେ ପରମିଶନ ଦେଇନାହାନ୍ତି ବଟ୍ ଆମର ଜଣେ ଷ୍ଟାଫ ସିଏ ଜୁଲୋଜିରେ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଇଗ୍ନୋରେ ତାଙ୍କର ପୁରା ଇଗ୍ନୋ ତରଫରୁ ହେଇଛି ସେମାନେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ଆଡ କରିଛନ୍ତି ଟୋଟାଲ ଇନଫରମେସନ ସେଥିରେ ଦଉଛନ୍ତି ବଟ୍ ଆମର କମ୍ପ୍ଲେନ
ସେଇଟା
ହେଇନି।
କେବେ ହଉଥିଲା ମାନେ ଜୁଲୋଜି ଫୋଲୋଜି ଏବେକା ମାନେ ରିସେଣ୍ଟ ଆମ ଜୁଲାଇ ସେସନରେ କରିଥିବା ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କର ସେମିତି ତ କାହିଁ ଆମେ ଜାଣିଲ
ଆମେ
ଆପଣ
ଗ୍ରୁପ
କୋଉ
କରିଛୁ
ସାଇଡରୁ କହୁ
ହଁ ଦିଦି
ହଉ
ଅଛି
ଠିକ ଅଛି ଏଇ
ଦିଦି ଅଛି ଜୁଲାଇରେ ପୁରା ଅଲ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ଗୋଟେ ଇଗ୍ନୋ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଅଛି ସେଥିରେ ହେଲା ସବୁ ମାନେ ଆଡ ହେଇଛନ୍ତି କେବଳ
ତାହେଲେ
ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ପିଲା।
ତମେ ତ କାହିଁ
ମୁଁ
ତମେ
କହିନଥିଲି ନା ତମକୁ
ଅଛ
କହିଥିଲି
କି
ବା
ସେ ଗ୍ରୁପ
ତ ମୁଁ
ଆଉ
କହିଥିଲି ବା
ତମେ
ସେ
ରୁହ ଆମେ
ଗ୍ରୁପଟାରେ।
ପରେ କଥା ହବା ହଉ ଠିକ ଅଛି ଆମେ ସରିଲା ପରେ ଆମେ ଦି ଜଣ କଥା ହବା ଆଉ ସାର୍ କଣ ମାନେ ଲେଫ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲେ ପୁରା ଆଉ ଆସିବେ ନା କଣ 6ଟା 5ଟା 15 20 ହେଇଗଲେ ଜଏନ କଲେ ପୁଣି 6:30 ହେଇନି ଲେଫ୍ଟ କଣ ମାନେ ଏଟଲିଷ୍ଟ ବି
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର
କହିକି ଯାଉନାହାନ୍ତି ଲେଫ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲେ ସଡନ ଯେ ଗଲେ ମାନେ ଟିକେ ବି
ଲକ୍ଷ୍ମୀପ୍ରିୟା ତମେ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ଅଛ କି?
ମୁଁ ତ କାହିଁ ଜାଣିପାରୁନି 8ଟା 10ଟା ଗ୍ରୁପ ହେଲାଣି କୋଉ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ମୁଁ ଅଛି ମୁଁ ନିଜେ ବି ଜାଣିନି ବାକି ଗ୍ରୁପ ସବୁ ଅଛି ଖାଲି ଭଦ୍ରକରେ ଆମର ଅଛି ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ମୁଁ ବାଲେଶ୍ୱରରୁ ମାନେ ଆମର ଷ୍ଟଡି ସେଣ୍ଟର ଦେଇଛି ମୁଁ ଖଇରା କଲେଜ ଏଫ ଏମ୍ ୟୁନିଭରସିଟି ଅଣ୍ଡରରେ ବାକି ବାଲେଶ୍ୱରରେ ବି ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ନାହିଁ ମୁଁ କେବଳ ଭଦ୍ରକ ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି ଆଉ ଏବେ ଗୋଟେ କଣ କଲ ସାର୍ ଆସିଛନ୍ତି ସାର୍ ଆସିଛନ୍ତି
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଆଉ କିଏ
ପୁଣି
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର
ଲେଫ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲେ
କି?
ମୁଁ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରୁ।
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଆପଣ ଗ୍ରୁପ କରିଛନ୍ତି?
ହଁ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ଫାଷ୍ଟ ଗୋଟେ ଗ୍ରୁପ ହେଇଥିଲା ତ।
ଗ୍ରୁପ ର ନାମ କଣ?
ମତେ ଜଏନ୍ କରିବେ ତ?
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଲିଙ୍କ ଛାଡିବେ ତ ମୁଁ ଜଏନ୍ କରିବେ?
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆଜ୍ଞା।
ଗ୍ରୁପ ର ନେମ ଟା କଣ କୁହନ୍ତୁ?
ମତେ ଜଏନ୍ କରିଦେବେ ତ?
ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ନାମ କଣ?
ଇଗ୍ନୋ ଏମ ଏ ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ଅଛି।
ମୁଁ
ଏମ ଏ
ଏବେ ମୋ
ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ଇଗ୍ନୋ
ହଁ ଜୁଲାଇ 2024।
2024 ଜୁଲାଇ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ଏମ ଏ ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ 2024 ଜୁଲାଇ ତ ଇଗ୍ନୋର
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ସିମ୍ବଲ ଅଛି ଡିପି
ନାଇଁ ନାଇଁ ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଲେଖା ହେଇକି ଅଛି ଇଗ୍ନୋ ଏମ ଏ ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ଷ୍ଟୁଡେଣ୍ଟ ଗ୍ରୁପ ବୋଲି।
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଆଚ୍ଛା ଏଇଟା ତାହେଲେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ
ମୋ ନମ୍ବର ଟା ଦେଇଦେଇଛି ମତେ ଟିକେ ଆଡ କରିବେ ତ ଏଥିରେ କଣ ଆସୁଛି ଦେଖିବେ।
ଏତେ କିଛି ଆସୁନି ଖାଲି ପିଲା ଏମିତି ଖାଲି ଯାହା ଲିଙ୍କ ଫିଙ୍କ ଆସିଲେ ସେଗୁଡା ସବୁ ଦିଅନ୍ତି ନହେଲେ ଆଉ କିଛି କେହି କିଛି କହୁନାହାନ୍ତି।
ଓ ଠିକ ଅଛି ଆଡ କରନ୍ତୁ ଦେଖିବା କଣ ହଉଛି ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ଗ୍ରୁପ କ୍ରିଏଟ କଲେ ଆମେ ତ ଜାଣିବା ନା ସାର୍ ଆଡ ହେଲେ ଆମେ ସାର୍ ଙ୍କ ଠୁ କିଛି ଇନଫରମେସନ ପାଇପାରିବା।
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଶୁଭଶ୍ରୀ ତମେ ଯୋଉ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଟା କରିବ ସାର୍ ଙ୍କୁ ଆଡ କରିବ ମାନେ ସବୁ ନମ୍ବର ଆଡ କରିଦବ ତ?
ନାଇଁ ନାଇଁ ଏବେ ଛାଡିଛନ୍ତି କିଏ କହିଲେ ସୁପ୍ରିୟା ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ଛାଡିଛନ୍ତି ଗୋଟେ ଲିଙ୍କ ସମସ୍ତେ ସେଇ ଲିଙ୍କରେ ଆଡ ହେଇଯାଅ ସାର୍ ଆସିଲେ ଆମେ ବି ସାର୍ ଙ୍କୁ କହିବା ଯେ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ଆଡ ହେଇଯିବେ।
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଆଚ୍ଛା।
ଏବେ ଯୋଉ ଲିଙ୍କ ଟା ଆସିଛି ସମସ୍ତେ ଆଡ ହେଇଯାଆନ୍ତୁ।
139 ଜଣ ମେମ୍ବର ଅଛନ୍ତି ଯୋଉଟା ଇଗ୍ନୋ କମନ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଅଫିସିଆଲ ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି।
ଇଗ୍ନୋର ତ ବହୁତ ସାରା ଆସିଛି ଗ୍ରୁପ କୋଉ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ଆଡ ହବ କୋଉ କେବଳ ଆସାଇନମେଣ୍ଟ ପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ଛାଡୁଛନ୍ତି ଆଉ କଣ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଥିବ ତ ମୁଁ କହିବି
ଫାର ବେଟର ଇଗ୍ନୋ ୱେବସାଇଟ ରେ ଯାଇକି ନିଜେ ଚେକ୍ କଲେ ଟାଇମଲି ଏଗୁଡା ମାନେ ଇଏ ସବୁ କଣ ମେସେଜ ସବୁ ଆସୁଛି ଆଉ ଚାଟିଂ ତ ଏମାନଙ୍କର ହିଁ ବେଶୀ ଯିଏ ନାହିଁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମେସେଜ
ଯଦି କିଏ ପାରୁଛ ସଲ୍ଭ ଆସାଇନମେଣ୍ଟ ପଠେଇ ପାରିବ ବୋଲେ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ପଠାନ୍ତୁ। ସାର୍ ପ୍ଲିଜ କଣ୍ଟିନ୍ୟୁ ଦ କ୍ଲାସ।
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍।
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍।
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ୟେସ୍ ସାର୍ ଆସୁଛି ଗୋଟେ
ହଁ ଏଠି ଲିଙ୍କ ଫେଲିଅର ହେଇଯାଇଥିଲା ଏବେ ଶୁଭୁଛି ତ? ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ୟେସ୍ ସାର୍।
Okay. So we are discussing about the weaknesses of the classical scheme of things. So we have discussed that a perfect computation is unrealistic. There is no such market which can be called perfect in the true sense of the term. We have discussed that a wage cut is not a solution to underemployment, unemployment or depression. The classical system रे जहाँ कुहा होतला जे if there is unemployment, reduce the wage rate. That means make the wage rate lower. Then unemployment will be automatically solved. But during Great Depression, what has happened? The workers are already thrown out of employment. They do not have income or very low income. So if it is not possible to reduce the wage rate at that time, if wage rate is reduced, the problem would be more acute. So Keynes was of the view that this is not an ideal solution to fight unemployment. So for that matter, they advocated other policy measures that we will discuss. So Keynes was of the view that full employment is not the reality, rather underemployment equilibrium is the reality. So in an economy, there would be some unemployment, underemployment as well. No automatic adjustment. We are discussing about the automatic adjustment between saving and investment with rate of interest as the equilibrating mechanism. But this is not found to be interest. Suppose interest rate is reduced. ସୁଧ ହାର କମିଗଲା. So ସେଠି କ'ଣ ହବ? Investors will find it profitable to borrow more money. But savers, they are not encouraged to save more. If rate of interest is increased, people have no income. How can they save? ଯଦି ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ପଇସା ନାହିଁ, ଇନକମ୍ ନାହିଁ, ସୁଧ ହାର ଖାଲି ବଢିଗଲା, ତେବେ ସେମାନେ କ'ଣ ସେଭିଂ କରିପାରିବେ? ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ନା ନାହିଁ? କ୍ଲାସିକାଲ ସିଷ୍ଟମରେ କୁହାଯାଉଥିଲା ଯେ ଯେତେବେଳେ if rate of interest brings about equality between saving and investment. But Keynes has refuted it, rejected it, and Keynes holds the view that it is the income that brings equality between savings and investment. If what example ମୁଁ ଦଉଛି, suppose investment is higher than savings. ମନେ ରଖିଲ, investments are higher than savings. What will happen? ସେଠି କ'ଣ ହବ? କ୍ଲାସିକାଲ ସିଷ୍ଟମରେ କ'ଣ ହବ? ସେମାନେ କ'ଣ କହୁଥିଲେ? If investment is greater than savings, rate of interest will increase. Rate of interest will increase. In that case, investment will fall, savings will be increased. There will be equality between saving and investment. This was the classical logic. But Keynes holds the view that if investment is greater than savings, what will happen? The income will increase. More investment means more income. ଆହୁରି ଗୋଟେ କଥା ପିଲେ ତମେ ଶୁଣିଥିବ, multiplier. So Keynes was of the view that an increase in investment has an multiplier effect on the economy. An increase in investment by 100 crores will not increase income by exactly 100 crores. Rather, it will increase income by 500 crores or 10,000 crores, 1,000 crores, depending on a marginal propensity to consume. Larger marginal propensity to consume means higher value of multiplier. There will be more multiplier effect. We will discuss all these issues, how multiplier works, how marginal propensity to consume depends on it in the Keynesian model. So, but you must remember this thing that when investment is higher than savings, income will increase. In the Keynesian logic. So Keynes was of the view that if investment is larger than savings, income will increase. Income will increase means what will happen? Increase in income will increase savings. Okay. So larger investment means larger income. Larger income means larger savings. So larger savings will equal higher investment. So there will be investment saving equality. Okay. यार तो केन्स कहले जे रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट एक्चुअली इक्विलिब्रिटी मेकानिज्म नुह जदि सेविंग्स आ इन्वेस्टमेंट रे इक्वालिटी नाही जदि इन्वेस्टमेंट बेसी सेविंग कमी जाईची ताले से केस रे कोन हबो इनकम विल इंक्रीज बाय अ मल्टीपल अमाउंट ऑफ द इनिशियल इंक्रीज इन इन्वेस्टमेंट इंक्रीज इन इनकम विल ब्रिंग इंक्रीज इन सेविंग्स इनकम बढ़िले सेविंग्स बढ़ियो कहीं कि हमें जानिछे saving is a function of income not rate of interest. Rate of interest has some effect also, no doubt there is no effect, we cannot say that, but most important factor that affects saving is income. आमर सिना इनकम हेले आमे सेविंग करिवा धर बैंक रे रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट 5% जगह रे हेगला 10% कि 20%. If we do not have income, how can we save? आम पाखे सीना पैसा थे आम नहीं सेव करिया बा सेठी डिपोजिट करिया कि बैंक रे रखिया जे हमर जदी इनकम नाही we cannot do that. So in Keynesian sense investment and savings they are equal, they are brought into equality, they are brought into equilibrium not via rate of interest but through income. So income is the equilibrating mechanism in the Keynesian sense. So this is found to be more realistic. Then Keynes has rejected laissez-faire and Keynes have argued for state intervention, increase in autonomous investment during depression so that more and more output could be produced. आउ तमे शुणिथिबो सेठी केस रे डिप्रेशन समय रे जेतेबेले जाओ अवस्था हला केन्स कोन कहले if private entrepreneurs are not interested to start their industries when marginal efficiency of capital is very much less. Marginal efficiency of capital regulates the rate of profit. When marginal people do not have income, marginal propensity to consume is less. When marginal propensity to consume is less, marginal efficiency of capital will be less. Marginal efficiency of capital means prospective yield that we expect from a capital asset during its lifetime. तार तो marginal efficiency of capital जेतेबेले कम होबो investment will be less. So in this type of situation that have taken place in the world during the 1930s, no private entrepreneurs was interested in starting their industries. So how could be the problem solved? Classical solution of reducing wage rate failed miserably. With this, the classical ship sank. Okay, it was Keynes who has found that government should come forward. Government should come forward to start investment. If investment is not immediately possible, then people may be asked to dig holes and fill the holes again to get some income for their work. ମାନେ ସେଇଥିବେଳେ କେନ୍ସ କହିଲେ ଯଦି କଳକାରଖାନା ଆରମ୍ଭ ହବା ସମ୍ଭବ ହଉନି ସେତେବେଳେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ କୁହାଯାଉ ସେମାନେ ଗାତ ଖୋଳିବେ ଏବଂ ସେଇ ଗାତକୁ ପ୍ରବଳା ପୁଣି ପୋତିବେ ଯାହା ଫଳରେ କି କିଛି ପଇସା ପାଇବେ। ସେଇ ପଇସାକୁ ନେଇ କଣ କରିବେ ନା ଜିନିଷ ପତ୍ର କିଣିବେ। ଜିନିଷ ପତ୍ର କିଣିଲେ କଣ ହବ? When people start purchasing goods and services with the help of money that they earn from the government activities, then demand for goods and services will increase, start increasing. With this aggregate effective demand will increase. When aggregate effective demand increases, this will push up the marginal efficiency of capital. When marginal efficiency of capital increases, the entrepreneurs will restart their industries so that the economy will gradually revive, not instantly. So this was the argument of Keynes. Another thing is that Keynes holds the view that classical system is a partial equilibrium analysis. It overlooks general equilibrium analysis. Classical system, it is a partial system. It does not explain the things fully. So we can talk of quantity theory of money, we can talk of Sage law, all these are partial. They are not based on empirical facts. The classical system, they are not based on empirical facts. They are based on myths, unrealistic assumptions like perfect competition, full employment, Sage law. So all these things, saving investment equality through rate of interest, all these assumptions are myths, are not reality. So with this, we have concluded the classical scheme of things, and I will send you the necessary documents, the necessary papers, figures, as well as all these things through the group. So first we will form a group, then we will discuss Keynesian theory. Maybe some discussion is possible today. In detail we will do it. We will discuss Keynesian scheme of things tomorrow. So how kon kar doubt ଅଛି କୁହ? If you have any doubt, please talk with me, please share with me. Your
Okay,
what
sir,
is
ପ୍ରଣାମ।
your okay?
ସାର୍ ଆମେ ଫିକ୍ସ ଡିପୋଜିଟ ଟାକୁ ଆମେ ସେଭିଂ କହିବା ନା ଇନଭେଷ୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟ କହିବା? କାରଣ ଯେହେତୁ ଆମକୁ ରିଟର୍ନ ମିଳୁଛି କିଛି ସେଥିରୁ, ତ ଆମେ ସେଇ ସେଭିଂ
Fixed deposit is a type of investment. Monetary investment. Investment is of two types. One is financial investment or monetary investment. Another is real investment. So the investment that we are discussing about in the classical system or in the Keynesian system, that is real investment. But the system, the investment that you are talking about, making a fixed deposit in a bank, is a financial investment. When we have some excess money over and above our consumption, we cannot make it lie in our trunk, in our almirah. So we go to a bank and open an account, fixed deposit account, so that we can get more interest. So fixed deposit is a investment. It is a financial investment because it yields interest. Okay, then thank you. Any other query?
Thank you, sir.
କୁହ ପିଲେ କୁହ, ଆଉ କିଛି ଭୟ କରନି କି ତମେ ଆଉ ଇଏ କରନି, କିଛି ଚିନ୍ତା କରନି, କୁହ କଣ ଡାଉଟ ଅଛି ଯଦି କୁହ। ଆଉ କାହାର ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ମୁଁ ତମକୁ କହିଛି, ରିଏଲ ଇନଭେଷ୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟ means investment in physical capital. So this is fixed deposit is investment in money capital. But real investment means investment in physical capital. If you buy a truck, if we establish a company, maybe a rice mill, then this is maybe a computer shop, maybe an internet, then this is called real investment. Okay. କଳକାରଖାନା ବସେଇବା, ମିଲ୍ ବସେଇବା, ଟ୍ରକ୍ ଚଲେଇବା, ଏଗୁରା ହଉଛି ରିଏଲ ଇନଭେଷ୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟ। ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କରେ ଟଙ୍କା ରଖିବା କି କାହାକୁ କରଜ ଦବା, ସେଟା ହଉଛି ମନିଟାରୀ ଇନଭେଷ୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟ, ଫାଇନାନ୍ସିଆଲ ଇନଭେଷ୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟ, ବଟ୍ ଇନଭେଷ୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟ। ଓକେ, ଆଉ କଣ କୁହ?
Sir, what is the main difference between consumption function and investment function?
Okay. So these are all will be covered in Keynesian system, but I am just giving you the idea that consumption function means a function of consumption that depends on income. So Keynes was of the view that consumption is a function of income, and he was of the view, Keynes has developed the very popular psychological law of consumption, in which he have discussed how consumption depends on income. And he was of the view that consumption depends on income on the basis of propensity to consume. It is the propensity to consume which regulates how income will affect consumption. So there are propensity to consume. One is average propensity to consume and another is marginal propensity to consume. It is the propensity to consume which guides, which affects consumption expenditure depending on consumption due to a given income. This mostly depends on marginal propensity to consume, and marginal propensity to consume is the ratio of change in consumption expenditure to change in income. Delta C to delta Y. Okay. Propensity to consume. And average propensity to consume is the ratio of consumption expenditure to income, C by Y. Average propensity to consume is symbolically written as C by Y. It is the ratio of C, consumption expenditure, to income. But marginal propensity to consume is the ratio of change in consumption expenditure to change in income. And Keynes found increase in money income, consumption expenditure no doubt increases, but the rate at which income increases is found to be more than the rate at which consumption increases. That means the rate of increase in consumption expenditure will be less and less with the increase in money income of the consumer. Consumer ko money rate re badhibo, ତାଙ୍କର କନଜମ୍ପସନ ଏକ୍ସପେଣ୍ଡିଚର ସେଇ ରେଟରେ ବଢିବ ନାହିଁ, ତାଠାରୁ କମ ରେଟରେ ବଢିବ। ମନେକର ଆମର ଇନକମ ଡବଲ, ଜଣେ ଲୋକ 50,000 ଇନକମ ପାଉଥିଲା, ତାର ସ୍କେଲ ଅଫ ପେ ଲକ୍ଷେ ହେଇଗଲା। Does not mean that his consumption expenditure will increase from 20,000 to. So in the long run, Keynes has established that with the increase in money income, consumption expenditure will increase, no doubt. But the rate of increase in consumption expenditure will be somewhat lower than the rate of increase in income. Income जो rate रे बढ़िबो, consumption expenditure सेही rate रे बढ़िबो नहीं, ताठू कम rate रे बढ़िबो। Okay, clear? now कौन को
सर जदि भी आमे जहा इनकम करूचे सेटा कंजप्शन बाकी आउ सेविंग हे गला, इन्वेस्टमेंट ता लैक रहिला, सर सेठी इक्विलिब्रियम ता तो हबनी। एग्रीगेट डिमांड एग्रीगेट सप्लाई इक्विलिब्रियम केमको
क्लासिकल सिस्टम रे कहो is equal to investment. whatever amount से तो कहूतले saving नहीं classical system रे whatever a person earns is automatically spent on consumption. Even if there is some savings, this is automatically invested. So says the classical system रे या कहा होतला जे सेविंग रहिबो नाही जदि किछि रहिला से ऑटोमेटिकली इन्वेस्टमेंट हे जिवो किंतु केन्स कहले सेमति नो सेविंग इन्वेस्टमेंट दे आर मेड बाय डिफरेंट ग्रुप ऑफ पर्सन्स जदि सेविंग आ इन्वेस्टमेंट जणे लोक करंता ताहले समान हंता तर जण कंज्यूमर सी ही मे बी ए सेवर बट ही मे नॉट बी एन इन्वेस्टर कंज्यूमर जी से इन्वेस्टर नुह so consumption is done by a group of persons saving is done by another group of persons so how can there will be perfect equality between the motives of two group of persons so if something is saved it has not gone through the process of not gone through aggregate demand so saving is a leakage from the income stream saving is a leakage from the income stream but there should be capital formation जो गोटा कहूछो how equilibrium will be restored to find increased savings invested in proper channels there should be capital formation तो सेविंग टा हमें लोक माने घरे करी रखिले there should be financial institutions there should be non banking financial institutions to accumulate the capital which lie unused and these institutions they invest money in investable activities तेणु लोक माने जो टंका संचय कर रखुछन्ते आग काल तो घरे ट्रंक बक्सरे अलमीरा रखुतले एबे बैंक रे हम रखुचे ते बैंक रे रखि देले सेटा सेही सेविंग टा पळेलानी इनकम स्ट्रीम की जीवनी इन्वेस्टमेंट हेले सेटा इनकम स्ट्रीम के आसीबो तेणु इन्वेस्टमेंट की करिवो इट इज द बैंक्स इट इज द फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस नॉन बैंकिंग इंटरमीडियरीज फाइनेंशियल इंटरमीडियरीज हु मेक इन्वेस्टमेंट से माने लोकन को टंका को नेइगिरी सेविंग करी से जो सेविंग की नेइगिरी से माने इन्वेस्टमेंट करिए ताहले पुणी सेविंग इन्वेस्टमेंट इक्वालिटी आसीबो ओके
आज्ञा
पिले
सर
कौन को कार कौन संदेह अछि हेलो हाँ ठीक अच्छे तुम आउ सब एराक घरे देखियो मन पकईबो पुणी डाउट हेले काली की पचारिबो किछि असुविधा नहीं जे मते ई जे तुम ग्रुप टा तैयारी कलो कि हेलो ओके पिले
यस सर
तुम सुनी परछ तो हम
यस
वर्तमान
सर
गोटे
क्रिएट
ग्रुप
कर
तैयारी करो हमर स्टूडेंट ग्रुप तैयारी कले मो मते मिसई देबो ता दिए मते ऐड कर दबो
सर
बुझिला
हमें क्रिएट कर आपण ऐड हेबे
अच्छा ऐड हेला परे मो तुमको सब मटेरियल छाड़ दी ता दिए हो को तुम आराम रे घरे देखा
यस
देई
सर
करे घर तुमको तो यूनिवर्सिटी हमर देइथियो यूनिवर्सिटी भी देइछि सब मटेरियल तेणु ता यूनिवर्सिटी मटेरियल सब छाड़ी आ गोटे सिंप्लीफाइड मटेरियल्स मु भी किसी तुमको देदेवी तुमको साहाଯ୍य करिवो ओके आउ कौन कह आउ किसी कौन डाउट अच्छी जदि कौन सी विषय रे जे गत वर्ष भी जो पिला माने एमती ग्रुप थिले तांको सब मटेरियल्स दिया होतल तमे सेमान को ठू टिके नियो हेल्प नियो केमती कौन करिवो हला आउ कौन कहिवो पिले को
सर गत वर्ष तो किए थिला हमें जानिनु किंतु आपण टिके ऐड हे गले हमको मटेरियल देले हमको टिके अधिका हेल्प होबो
अच्छा ठीक है जे तमे वर्तमान माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स जो रहिला सेठी किछि पाइले मटेरियल सार देले माइक्रो ना पढ़ा है ठीक है मु बर्तमान आड होकर जिते शीघ्र तुमको मटेरियल्स देदेवी काली छाड़देवी ग्रुप रे ହେଲା
यस सर सर आम ग्रुप लिंक
हाँ
टा
हाँ
शेयर
ठीक
करिछु आप ऐड हे जिबे
हाँ
मटेरियल
ठीक
देले हम टिके
हाँ हाँ मु आड हो जाइकरी आज जदि सुविधा हम कि ना काली मॉर्निंग रु मु तुमको मटेरियल्स छाड़देवी तुम टे देखा देखी करी पुणी संध्या बेलू रेडी हो कौन डाउट फाउट पचार तापर आम पुणी आगेवा है ठीक अच्छे
यस यस सर
सो थैंक यू ऑल थैंक यू ऑल थैंक यू
लिंक देबेनि कि
लिंक दिया लिंक देखी ना कि देइछु पूरा से देइथिले हमरो कौन ना नेम भी मोर मन पड़नी रही था मु देखुची सुप्रिया मैडम लिंक छाड़ीथिले ऐड हे नांदी
नहीं मु सेते लेफ्ट हे जाइथिले सेते लिंक टा शो करू नहीं मते
हाँ से लिंक छाड़ी दे छंदी ऐड हे जांदु
एबे जो देवशीष छाडिछंती
मु टिके देखुची से लिंक छाड़ी छंदी ना नहीं हाँ सही लिंक रे ऐड हे जांदु जो छाड़ी छंदी देवशीष सही लिंक रे ऐड हुन जो माने भी ऐड हे नांदी ऐड हे जांदु